What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. Today, I have a very special guest, someone that people may not notice is a primary reason I chose to go to Virginia Tech. I have none other than former Warwick standout, former Virginia Tech DBU legend, Antonio Banks is in the building. Banks, what's good, man? How you doing, man?
Man, how's it going this morning, Big Vic, man? Hey, it's such an honor to be on your platform, man. You're doing amazing things with a lot of guys you've been interviewing, man. So it's just an honor to be a part of this movement.
Oh, man, it's an honor to have you on. I meant that. We're going to talk about your legacy in detail today, man, because you are humble. You stay away from the spotlight, which I always find funny because when you played, you got to the spotlight. You made plays all the time, even in high school, which I can't wait to talk about. But all jokes aside, you were an influence on me. You're 2 years older than me in regards to playing days, but we had our battles in high school. When I saw you make plays, I was being heavily recruited, and I saw you and Law Lou, who was also from the PD, make plays in the Independence Bowl. I knew then I wanted to play with you and Cornell Brown and all those guys. And you one of the best to ever do it. But we're going to take it back, though, before we talk about college and NFL and you coaching. We're going to go back to 7-5. We're going to go back to Newport News Marshall Lab, man. Eastern Newport News in general has been known. We know about the 757, but Newport News for years has put out great players. We know about Cuz, we know about Michael Vick, but you and William Yarborough and so many guys came from down there and made a name for yourself, man. Banks, when did you get into football, man? When how did that all come about, man?
Hey, man, true story, man. My mom, when I lived in Woodsong, she was like this little league called Parkview. So she's like, I don't know, we got to get you involved with some, so I'm going to sign you up for this football program over here. And was known as Parkview at the time. So my first day, man, she took me over there. I didn't have any pass. So I had to man, I'm from the book. I was poor, man. I didn't have no money. So I ended up like using someone else's pass. You know how it is, Vic. And my first day, man, I cried, man. I really did. I didn't want to be out there. I cried and I like, wait, don't leave me out here. But I think that was the beginning of the dream, of wanting to be successful and knowing that I can hopefully get around the right people, get the right coaches. I had back then Coach Curtis. And I played with Maurice Pierce and those guys. And my little league team was really, really good. Like we beat some area. I think it was like 22-0 or something like that, man.
Wow. I
played with some ballers, man. And we used to have those battles against World War II, the team from down the way. And man, we had some battles, man. But I played with some kids that can play. When I played, man, I played like tackle and defensive end. My first I was like blocking for people, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
No, it's crazy, man. Funny story. I lived in Woodsong for a little bit, man, and Stewart Gardens before we moved to Ham. People don't realize I lived in Newport News for a little while. Woodsong, also a project called Randolph.
I know.
Yeah, I lived in Randolph, Woodsong, and Stewart Gardens before we moved to Shell Road, and that wasn't much of an upgrade, but we love it.
Hey, man, you got to fight when you from that area, man.
Yeah,
every
man.
day is a struggle. Yeah, you're like, man, I'm going to get into a fight with today. Like, sheesh.
Yeah, but you know what's crazy, Banks? You talk about fight, man. Ever since I've known you, man, you've been a fighter, not so much throwing hands, but more so, man, resilient. Where does that toughness come from? Does that come from Newport News? Does that come from, just your coaches or just the grind your mom taught? Like, where does that come from? Because you've always been tough.
Man, I just think that it's come from the environment, 757, being from that area, man, you got to be tough, you know what I mean? If not, then you'll get picked on all the time. And, my mom, she worked 2 jobs, so I seeing her put in that work just so we can have something, kind of like, man, you got to be tough, don't show feelings. And then I just had great coaches. Like I said, I had, Coach Curtis, who was my little league coach. And then as I went to high school, I had Coach Raymond. So, it just started early, and then I had great friends. I had guys that was super, super talented, and I was like, man, these dudes can really play. That didn't play college football, so it was crazy. So it was like an everyday grind for us. We back then, you play sandlot football. You know how that is, Vic. Tackle football, no equipment on, and we did it all day. We did that all day long. So I think that a lot of that just comes from this coming from the mud, man. It's growing up in that environment, man. It's just being tough.
And you definitely came from the mud, but you also rose above. You talk about the coaches that influence you. Were there any other OGs in the neighborhood? Because you and I both, especially during that time, but it's probably harder, even worse now. We saw a lot of youngins that did make it. You know what I mean? Like you talking about, like everybody saw Chuck and Mike's 30 for 30, but all of us could have given that story. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you saw some talented brothers get caught up, man. Like, who kept you away from that besides your mom? Who kept you? Because I mean, Newport News, other than Denby and all that, the bottom, as we call it, you can get stuck. You mentioned the mud. What's funny about mud, you can get stuck in the mud. You know what I'm saying? But you got out. So, like, what kept you away from that? What kept you on the ground with sports?
Man, I just was blessed to have angels, man. Like a lot of older, people who saw that I had some talent and was like, we need to keep this kid away from the streets. And when I was at Warwick High School, we had this coach called Coach Jackson, and he's always say to us, don't be a statistic, son. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, not many guys come through here and go to college. They even, end up in jail or dead. And I was like, looking at him like, nah, not me. So I was one of those guys that kind of like thrive when people say you couldn't do something. And I was like, I'm gonna show you, and I didn't have a dad and all that stuff growing up, man. So, coaches like himself, Miss Dantley, she was like a second mom. They kind of like kept me out of trouble, man. And then, Coach Raymond, man, I can't say enough about him, as far as, how he, kind of like stuck with me, man, because I had a terrible attitude, man. You had to, you know what I mean? So he gave me the speech. He said, son, I played running back. He's like, son, you can't talk to your offensive lineman like that, or, they can start blocking for you. So when he used to give me those talks, man, so as you get older, man, you use those lessons and you say, wow, so I was rough, man. They just stuck with me, and, and it came to be what it is, you know what I mean? Having an opportunity to go to Virginia Tech.
We're going to talk about all that in a second, but it's so funny, man, because I know about the old Banks. See, people see, now you so positive and words of wisdom and motivational quotes, but we're going to talk about, because I got a story for you. I don't know if you remember, but I'm so excited because you've been big brother to me for the longest time. At the same time, you were considered by many, and still are, one of the best defensive backs ever played at Virginia Tech, and you were a great playmaker for Warwick. But in youth ball and in middle school ball, depending on where you grow up, man, you a lot of times you mentioned you played line and you were blocking. And when did you know that you were going to be, because you were a versatile athlete, when did you know you were good at football? Like, cause some guys, they late bloomers, they find out later, or it happens in college. When did you know, like, yo, I can really make something with this career, man?
Big, I'm gonna just be honest with you, man. I just went out there and just played the game, man. And like, it's something I love to do. We did it every day to try to stay out of trouble in the neighborhoods, and we was always going against this apartment complex down here. Woodson against Newsom Park, or Woodson against Bryfield. So, and it was like, man, you can play. You see some of the older guys in the neighborhoods, like, man, this guy Banks can go. And then when I went to Warwick and then having those battles, see those crowds and stuff, it was like, wow, really? And, Sean Hamley, who was a good friend of mine, the story is, man, when I moved to Denby, Mitchell High School had some of the top athletes, in the 757 going there. Then Sean Hamley, he transferred, I think Bubba Chuck transferred to the Hampton area. And then I ended up staying up there, and then I got hurt my sophomore year, and that's how I ended up at work, because my mom, back then you couldn't stay out in a different zone, so you had to go to the school your parents stayed in. So, and I got hurt at Mitchfield, and I think I was playing like quarterback that year and like wide receiver. I mean, I was playing some everything, both ways, never came off the field. So when I got hurt, and then they found out that I lived in the Warwick, zone, they was like, son, you got to transfer to Warwick. When I went to Warwick, those guys, they from downtown, you know what I mean? They from Cornberg and all those guys, and I was like, man, I can never get on the field, man. And then I went there and as a sophomore, and the coach, Dion Ruffy, and I playing me at DB, man. And 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 I love the hits, so that was my forte back then, man. I'll probably get kicked out all the games right now if I played.
Yes, you would.
The way I played, man. I was a headhunter. My thing was, I'm like one of the old school guys, man. I came up looking at Ronnie Lotts of the world and, Atwater and those guys, man, is being a thumper. And I was like, man, I'm gonna do whatever I got to do to intimidate this guy on the other side of the field. And that's how I played the game,
No doubt. And shout out to Sean Hamlin. He was on the Legacy Spotlight, and he mentioned the same things you meant. And shout out to Coach Reeman. You played for Coach Reeman. And I've often said when I've had guys on here from the 7-5, especially the Peninsula District during the golden era of Peninsula District football and basketball, you're talking about some of the best football and battles within the district, especially when it came to Hampton and Newport News. And the thing about it is I was introduced to Warwick my freshman year. I was on varsity. I didn't play unless it was a blowout, but we played y'all on a real hot day on a Saturday afternoon about 2:00. And I posted a video a few months ago when you got the pick on Fred Brown and you were hitting up the sideline. You had a towel, a towel hanging down to your knee. And then you got tackled. You looked like you were going to score. And then when you went out of bounds, you took the football and threw it. And I remember saying, yo, that dude right there, I was a freshman. I said, this guy plays like with aggression and anger. And Warwick, man, I saw and I felt the hatred for us as a freshman, right? And then fast forward to my sophomore year, I'm starting, and we're playing y'all at Todd on a night game. And you put on a show. We only won 13-10, but for those watching this video, Banks and I are brothers now. We're family. This is my guy, but I didn't know him at the time. Our quarterback throws a pick, and Banks is running it out, and I'm a left tackle, and I'm coming at him, and I'm just kind of nudging him out of bounds, and he looked at me, and he started looking at me and nodded his head. For those that know Banks, if you watch him, he has swag. And I just elbowed him in the face. Yo, I elbowed him in the face, and the whole sideline went crazy, and Banks just laughed. But there was a play I will say to this day, me and my teammates said, you ran a kickoff back that night, and they said you stepped out of bounds. And the funny story I want to remember is not the elbow, but I remember warming up that 10th grade year, and Banks, you were possessed. You were screaming at all your teammates. You were cussing us out. Banks was cussing us out on the sideline while we were warming up. He's going up and down the sideline. I can't say that on my podcast, but it was F Hampton. We coming for y'all. We gonna kill y'all. Let me just tell you the viewers this. If you ever watch a Mike Tyson rant when he said, I'm gonna eat your children, that's along the lines of what Antonio Banks was saying us that night, man. But you know what? With all seriousness, man, like, do you remember that those games, those battles we had? I know you hated us because you were a competitor. Just tell everybody, to take us back to that time. What made you that way as far as wanting to hate us and beat us, and why'd you play so angry, man?
Man, Hampton was the gold standard, man, and we felt like as players that, hey, if you play good against Hampton, man, you got a chance to go far because, you guys had, Mundy, the tight end, and Eric, then, later you had, Sean and all those guys, man, and Myron Newsom. So it was like, we knew it was going to be a dogfight. So we came up with all these like hood sayings back then and all these little chants, who could beat the pass the loudest, who could wear the biggest, shoulder pads. You got like 1,000 thigh pads in. Hey, it was wild, man, because those games used to be so packed, man, so packed. And it like I said, it was a hard-fought game. That the night we lost to you guys, man, we was upset. But at the end of the day, man, we laid it all on the field, and we lost to a better team. But I felt like as players, we did what we had to do to win. I thought we could have did better, but hey, it's ancient history now. And I always say, man, they have to got those referees in the pocket, man. Yeah, like you don't supposed to call a play like that. Like, you guys just can't, because it's crazy because you just had to kick the field goal to go up 13-10.
Yeah.
You guys kicked it off, and I ran it back. So, and then they called that back, and I'm looking at the final score, I'm like, man, that was the game winner right there.
You would have won a game.
You
Yep.
know, but like I said, man, it goes in the vault as one of those urban legends type games, and I remember it, and it's when I seen you post those videos, I was like, wow, you got stuff I ain't even got, like the high school stuff.
Yeah. I research, I do my due diligence, but
Oh man,
Banks, but you were part of the golden era, man. You and William Yarborough, aka Killer, you played with some great players, man. Just talk about some of your teammates and those memories you have. I know you and I are both older now, man, but take us back to the time, man, like, high school ball, Friday night lights in the PD. What was it like?
big man. But back then, man, it was crazy because you had all those, those good teams. You had those guys from Belter, you had the guys from Kickerton, the Turner brother, guys from Phoebus. So it was like, hey man, it's when Friday come game time, it's like, what we gonna do? You know what I mean? And I played with some great guys with the Haskin brothers and Dedrick Rogers and those guys, man, and Corey Burgers of the world. So we had some guys too. So it was like, who's gonna make the most plays at the end of the day? Back then, everybody's running that option stuff, and that wild tackle 6 stuff on defense. So it was like, it was like smash them off for real. It wasn't that none of that passing stuff. It was like downhill. You gotta put your big pads on, man. But it was some great battles, man. It really was, man. And it's crazy because a lot of those guys, didn't end up going, to college. You know what I mean? So just to be one of those guys that shared the field with those great guys, I was like, wow, and be one of the ones to make it out of that thing, man. It's crazy to me because it's like it was so many other guys that was probably way better than I that never had a chance to go play on Saturdays or at a university, So, and I'm just fortunate, man, that they caught me at the right time with my grades and got me going. Say, hey, son, you got to get your grades right. You got to do this. And I just was fortunate that I listened, to like Miss Dan Lee as far as my grade. Cause I just did enough, just did enough to play football. Cause, I'm not knowing, I don't, my mom never didn't graduate from high school. So, and then I think I ended up getting in trouble or something like that. And that was like the eye opener for me. And I was like, wow, this is not what I want. I think I did like a dad detention or something like that. And and I'm like, man, I'm not meant to be in the cage, 8x8 cell, you know what I mean? So when I got all that thing, I kind of like cut some friends off and stopped hanging with some of the guys on the block, man. And it's like I started focusing more on school and just trying to have opportunity because a lot of people don't know. I was headed to Virginia State before.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So,
I did not know that.
Hey, long story short, big. So, I was a big fan of Sean, because we played together in Midfield. So I'm like, man, he told me, hey, man, Florida State looking at me. So I'm like, hey, man, you think, that you get them to look at me? So he was like, whatever. So, all right. So we trying to roll together. So he went to Virginia Tech with me. He went to Virginia Tech just so I can get in. I don't even know if you knew that story because he wasn't going to Virginia Tech. So we went at the same time on our official to Virginia Tech just so I could have an opportunity to get a scholarship, man. So that's hats off to Sean because he was going to Florida State. I took my ACL my senior year, and Coach Beamer at the time, he was like, "Hey, son, if you do what you gotta do, and rehab and all that, we might have a gray shirt for you," which is now where everybody doing is going to school.
Exactly.
Which is crazy now because back then it was like taboo. You're like you either going in with your class or it's like going like semester later. So but it panned out, man, for me as far as the route that I took because I was able to get the spring ball and all that and feel more comfortable coming back from my ACL and made a big play on Pools at the time and it was the rest of the story is history. You know what I mean?
I did not know. I knew you and Sean were close from a long time ago.
Yeah,
and Sean had told me, I remember because I was teammates with Sean for 2 years, and I was asking him about his visits, and he mentioned Tech. But at the time when Florida State coming to look at you, Florida State didn't come down there a lot.
No, not at all.
So when I should say up there, when they came to Virginia to look at him, I was like, wow. And I never knew that he went there and y'all went there together so he can kind of finesse them to make it look. I didn't know that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So it was crazy because we stayed together on the visit. So long, I ain't gonna even tell you about what happened that night. But hey, that's off to Sean, man. And from there, man, that's the reason why I changed my number. After my freshman year to number 9, because that's what he wore in high school. A lot of people that he wore number 9 in high school. That's why I changed my number to 9. Because he ended up playing at number 18 at Florida State. But that's a lot of story behind that, man. And I was going to the Virginia State, man. I went down to orientation and did the whole application thing, and because I was like, man, ain't no way I'm gonna get in. I think I was at the back time, I was like Prop 42, I believe. So I was, thinking I was gonna be a Prop 42 type kid because that's how bad my grades were. And I ended up passing the SAT on my last time I took it. And when I got to Virginia Tech with John Verlin, thanks to John Verlin, man, I was able to, he put me he set me up for success, because he was like, hey, son, I didn't think you was going to make it when you got here. He was like, your stuff was bad. Oh, man, John Verlin, man, that was my guy, though. He kept me grounded, man, and made sure I did what I had to do to get out of there, when I did. And, and Dorita also played a big part in her and Lois Bird, man. So it was some great people at Tech, that helped me along the way,
Shout out to Dorita, man. She helped a lot of us out,
man. She
appreciate
like Dorita, for real.
Yeah. I want to talk about your time at Tech, Banks, because I remember, being a senior, I got, Florida was interested in me. I had offers from Florida and, a few HBCUs, Tech, UVA. And I remember I liked Tech a lot. I had visited. I don't remember connecting with you on my visit. I was hosted by Lawrence Lewis. But I remember my dad and I, we had the game on. And I watched you throughout the year. But then that game against Indiana, Independence Bowl, when you got the block kick and took it to the house, and then you celebrate in the end zone, I don't know what did you in the end zone. When you get to the end zone, fans just grab you, or people grab you every time you score. But yeah, but at the same time, I remember being like, yo, I was like, at that moment, as I mentioned in this interview started, I'm going to Tech because, you looked up to Sean. You and Sean were close, but even though you played at Warwick and I was an offensive defensive lineman, you were one of those guys we talked about. Like we were at Hampton, we knew y'all were going to be physical. And to me, at that time, you made Tech's uniform look sweet the same way you made Warwick's uniform. Because if you remember, bro, you had a visor in high school. Yeah. And I remember you had a visor.
Yeah, that gold shoe.
You had them go, and then on top of it, you had an illegal dark visor. I don't even know how you were able to play with it. It was too dark. And then at Tech, you was out there. I said, yo, you had the socks rolled just nice. You had the spat taped over your shoes.
Oh, the spat,
and I was like, yo, this dude Banks is that dude. I want to go there and play with him. People don't, because you and Cornell were playing as freshmen. And I was just like, yo, this guy's special, man. But when you got to Tech, man, what was it like? Because, Tech has evolved now to, Virginia Tech. But, when you and I went there, everybody was like, yo, where? Guys were going to UVA. Guys were going out of state to Carolina.
Oh,
heck, man, guys were going to HBCUs before they were going to Tech.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So what was it like when you first got there, man?
Hey, man, it won't what it is now. That's for sure. Man. First of all, like just having the opportunity to go to Tech, man, and like you say, you had Lawrence and those guys there, and Killer, William Yarborough was also there because we played together at Warwick. So, it was one of those opportunities that I had, to get a scholarship for one and lessen the burden on my mom. So it was like, man, that's the only one I had because of the ACL. So I took it and ran with it. And I couldn't tell you nothing about Tech at the time, man. I never even knew who Virginia Tech was because, when we was in high school, it was always UVA and Terry Kirby and those guys.
Yep.
I thought I was going to UVA because they did my surgery for me for free. And I'm like, I'm definitely going to UVA. Now they just hooked me up.
Mm-hmm.
And then those jokers didn't even offer me, man. So that kind of pissed me off. But hey, I'm glad I ended up going to Virginia Tech, man, because I met some amazing people. A lot of guys now, who are like my brothers that I, still keep in contact with to this day, man. So you know how it is, man. Sometimes you don't know where you're going, but your path is already written. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
it was a great opportunity to go to Tech. We didn't have all that stuff, but and John Boleyn at the time, and I don't even know. Like, a lot of people don't even remember. Like, but Virginia Tech was coming off a 2-8-1 season.
Yeah.
And Beanston was about to get fired. You know what I mean? They hired, ended up hiring this crazy D coordinator named Phil Almation.
Almation.
And to me, a lot of people might not agree, but he the one that turned that thing around as far as how we approach things. You know what I mean? From just more defensive philosophy. He was even trying to control what the offense did, as far as certain drills and stuff that we did as far as developing mental toughness, man. And then when we got Cornell Brown, who was All-American at the time, to commit to Virginia Tech, it was like, okay. And then the freshmen mixed in with some of those older guys. We kind of like got together. It's like, okay, fellas, let's put this thing together and head in the right direction. And then we reeled off 20-some straight bowl games until it just recently ended. But it was like a brotherhood, man. And when I came to Tech, Tyrone Drake was like a big brother to me, man. He took me under his wing and showed me the ropes as a player and stuff like that. So I felt like it was, I was indebted to do that as well. When younger guys came in, is take them under your wing and show them the ropes. So what it's like to be a Hokie and go from there, man. So I've just been blessed from that point of view.
No, shout out to Drake. Shout out to Drake, Hall of Fame. Congratulations to Tyrone Drake, my God.
It's like when he got to go, when he got that, I felt like I'm getting to go in.
Yeah. Some say you should, but hold on. I want to ask you something, man. I'm so glad, Banks, you mentioned Almation, right? Because I had J.C. Price and Cornell Brown on last year, man, and they as well know the historical perspective on the turnaround of Virginia Tech football program. Many people point to the 93 season as that starting point, but what I've always said, the 95 season, and I've had Bud Foster on, I've had Frank Beamer on as well, and they didn't debate it. The 95 season, to me, if that doesn't happen, you have no Virginia Tech, what you have now. And then, right? What do you think?
Yeah, because that game put us on the national level, as far as like, okay, these guys can play with the big guys, and this was like we had just beat Texas, who was like a powerhouse. So for us, it was like, and we had just beat Miami that year, coming up on 0-2 season. Starting the season at 0-2, we ended up beating them down in Blacksburg, and then it was like the rest was it was like wow, it was a magical ride, man. And we had some great leadership with Jim Byrne and those guys, man. And I was happy to just go along for the ride, Vic. To be honest with you, man, I was happy to go along for the ride.
So humble. You listen, hold on. Yeah, along for the ride. Stop, man. I'm not gonna let you get on my show with this humble pie. First of all, you are humble, but you were one of the goats. Okay, hold on though. So I'm glad you mentioned Almation. Almation, I knew Almation from high school because him and Coach Mike Smith were friends. He would come down and talk. He recruited guys and talked to Coach Smith about, I don't know, they were defensive guys. But Cornell Brown and JC and I were talking on their legacy spotlights about, you talk about guys. You talk about personalities. You had Almation. At the time, Gary Tranquil was the offensive coordinator. Bud Foster was the linebackers coach. You had Coach Sharpless. You had Stein Spring. You had Coach J.B. Grimes, Coach Todd Grantham. You had some of the best coaches. Beamer had a staff, right?
Yeah.
We talking about and personalities. And Almation, I don't know how y'all played for him because I was terrified of him. I was on the scout team. I was a red shirt. And he would talk to y'all so intense, and he let y'all be y'all, because I remember he said, if we stop him on the 1 yard line, that's good because we get a chance to stop him again. Like his mind. And one time the scout team was messing up, and he said, you know what? I'd rather they go against air. Y'all, he told the GA to make us run the entire period. And I'm like, man, we still got conditioning, man. But like playing for Almation, and those guys, Banks, some of those coaches you played for, the defensive staff, man. What do you remember about that defensive staff? Y'all, I know you weren't on offense.
Man, I'm gonna be honest. I'm all like, this dude is Vic. I tell you one day, man, we was in practice and stuff you can't even do now. So I'm a young freshman. So we in one-on-ones. I'm covering the receiver catches the ball. I stopped, whatever. And I just seen this short dude that's running after me from about 20 yards away. It was Coach Animation running towards me. So when he got to me, he just grabbed my face mask. And he said, look, son, I don't give up. What happens? But you never stop. Never stop. And Vic, man, that day was like, I was like, whoa. Man, I got to the door. I called my mom. I said, look, Mom. I said, I don't know if this is working. I said, I want to come home. He said, come home? Son, you ain't coming back here. You better figure it out. But it's crazy, man, because at that moment, man, I didn't know what was going on at that moment. But later on in life, that was the best thing that could have happened to me, man.
No question.
Man, it's just that have coaches like that, man, that held you accountable and stayed on you, because at the end of the day, they just want the best for you, man. And shout out to Elmo, man, just for that, man. There's a lot of stuff that he did that at the time I didn't agree with, but later on I was like, wow, he just was setting me up for later on trials and tribulations and how to overcome stuff. So I owe a lot to him, and like I said, John Boland again, man, and he kept me growing as far as the school part of it, and he kind of like defended me sometimes, because I'll be chilling in his office and Coach Animation come by his office and be like, what are you doing in here? And to be like, he's in here talking to me. So, but yeah, man, we had some great coaches, man. We had, Death Row with Todd Grantham and them, man, and those guys, man. Woo! Man, that front, that we had, that, woo! Vic, I put them dudes against anybody, man.
I feel like 95, man, we were so hot we could have beat anybody in the country.
Hey,
I feel like we could have beat anybody in the country.
Yeah, man, them dudes can play, man. Them dudes can play. And for us as DBs, man, we used to get on them sometimes and like, hey, especially Tori, he used to get on Cornell and they're like, Death Row. Y'all ain't no Death Row. Like, y'all just got to do just running through us. Oh, man. And all he did was just like poking the big bear, man. And then JC and them, man, just starts to take the game over. So it's stuff like that you just always remember, like, wow, these dudes can play, man.
Man, you are part of now a hashtag movement with Virginia Tech. You can make a debate Ohio State and LSU. I'm not into the debating stuff. Obviously, LSU has a track record. LSU got a track record. But with all due respect, David Till, who's also been on this Legacy Spotlight, we talked off air, and he's done articles. Virginia Tech's defensive back legacy is amazing. Obviously, you have 2 or 3 other schools that is right there or above us. But when it comes to Tyrone Drakewood, one of the GOATs who just got enrolled and then named to the Virginia Tech Sports Hall of Fame. You mentioned the other day, you and I were tweeting about Russell, AKA the Dark Zone, who's one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah, man.
And, and then you and Torian and Larry Green and William Yarborough and Lauren Johnson, Anthony Mitchell, Philip Summers, all those guys coming to the fold. You guys started something now that goes decades when it comes to Virginia Tech DBU. And you were a playmaker. And the thing that was great about you have D'Angelo Hall, you have Ike Charlton, and you have a few other guys that are playmakers. You have some guys that are just DBs. Brandon Flowers is arguably one of the best DBs ever do it like yourself. Brandon Flowers was special, and he had a knack for making the play. But Banks, you like D'Angelo Hall. If you got your hand on the ball, it was 6. But to me, what meant, and I'll post, people know I'll post videos real quick. Not only was it 6, but then you come up the next play, and there was a play I remember when you hit a dude so hard, you broke your own nose and knocked him out.
Oh,
do you remember that? Southern Miss game. It was on the road. I didn't go. I traveled some games as a red shirt, but you hit dude so hard. Do you remember that? You remember? I mean,
that was crazy, man. For me, man, I was like, hey, guys, if you line them up, I'm gonna do whatever. Hey, I'm coming. Did he get me? Or I get him. 1 to 2. Hey, I don't know how it's gonna go, but I just played like that. That was part of my game, man. Back then, man, I was a box safety, and I played the safety position at Virginia Tech. Up G2. I'm highly safety. I'm coming. You know what I'm saying? And it was just one of those perfect plays. Where the guy didn't see me coming, man, I just tried to run right through him, and broke my nose in the process. My helmet came over my nose. It's crazy. Back then, all they did was stuck a bunch of gauze and some kind of liquid stuff up my nose to keep it from bleeding. But I finished playing the game, and then I also played the next week when we played Boston College. So,
Yep.
You ain't gonna get that back, now. I mean,
Nah.
back, now is a concussion, and you out for a couple of weeks because that's really what it was. Cause I saw stars, bells, Tweety Bird, hey, whatever you want to call it, I seen it all. It was like, hey, pass me up, doc. I was like, Rocky, pass me up, doc. Going back in.
No doubt, man. Hey,
going back in.
Oh man, so you mentioned that game and you knocking the dude out and you breaking your nose, man. How does it feel? You mentioned being from East End, Newport News, the mud, the bottom, East End. Just seeing the trauma, because it's trauma. We older now. We recognize seeing guys get shot, seeing guys get caught up in drugs and substance abuse. To come from that the same way many of us did, and not just in VA but in other parts of this country. Yep. To have, as I posted, and the love was shown to you on many media outlets, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. When I posted those videos, you made two of the biggest plays in Virginia Tech history, football history, coming from where you come from. You had the return, block field goal return in the Independence Bowl that they show every time they show that game. Now, shout out to Jeff Holland, because I believe he blocked it.
Yeah, he blocked it.
You know what I'm saying? But you returned it. And you got some great blocks along the way.
Yep.
But then you had the one that is always talked about. We beat in 95, again, the most important season in Virginia Tech football history, I feel. We're playing arguably, in my humble opinion, but I got the credibility to say this, arguably the best UVA team in the history of their program. They beat Florida State. They had shared the ACC title. They had, shout out to my big brother, Paul London. They had Paul London. They had Ferrier. They had Gross, son, the quarterback. They were loaded everywhere. The Barber brothers.
Yes, some dogs.
They look, that's our rival, but I real recognize real.
Yeah,
UVA was special that year. And we come back. We still drunk engineers that come back, but they still got time. I'm taking you there, everybody. And they're driving, and Banks comes out of nowhere and picks it off, and then hits them with the Deion swag. I'm surprised they didn't throw a flag. And the crowd comes on the field. I talked about this play on my other podcast the other day. And then we found out that season or a little later that one of the coaches, playfully or not, tried to trip you. You didn't see it. Yeah.
That was an athletic trainer that did that.
Yeah. But I bring those stories up because they were euphoric moments for Virginia Tech, Hokie Nation fans, and people that follow us. That pick is when two of those plays, you had two of the biggest plays ever, man. I know you're coaching now, you're a father, you're mentoring new young men. But when you think about those two plays, especially that UVA interception, man, how does it feel, man? Like I came from the mud. I came from where I was told I wasn't going to make it. And I made these plays, man, and they're historic plays. What does that feel like?
Man, the way I look at it, Vic, I was just doing my job, man. Just try to contribute to the team in any way possible. Like that block field goal wasn't something that was drew up. You know what I mean? We didn't draw that up. Beans didn't say, hey, let's go block it, blah, blah. It was like, hey, get a push D-line. And I'm like, okay, well, what if this thing is short? So it was just one of those instinct things where Jeff blocked it and lo and behold, the ball just came to me. So I was like, all right, do what I do best. I'm back at the playground, back in the Woodson, just making a play, man. And playing something like football, try to get it to the end zone, and happily it was at the end of the half. So that's why all those people were there. Because I think it was coming on for a halftime show or whatever, man. And then the brotherhood, that's what I got from that picture, is just to see the brotherhood at that time, man. From all the guys running in the end zone, man. That was a great feeling. And then the UVA game, man, I don't know how we got out of that game alive, man. Yeah, they was loaded, man. But Death Row turned it on in the fourth quarter, made some plays, made some sacks, man, and then the offense got it going at the right time, making some big plays down the stretch. Druckenmiller and Jermaine Holmes and those guys, man, and we had to go back out defensively to keep them from getting the field goal range. And it didn't start off well because I think they ended up getting like a big play with a toss play to a tiki ball down the middle. He ran for a good little while. We got him out of bounds. And then it was like a couple of seconds left. they were trying to decide if, they run one more play to get closer for their field goal kicker, who I thought was at that time was a real good field goal kicker, Garcia. And I was like, man, there's only one play they can run, and that is a quick out to that sideline. And, Bud called us over and told us the situation, and, man, just make plays, man. Just, like I tell, hey, at big moments, playmakers make plays. At the end of the day, you can do all the talking that you want, but at some point, you got to make a play. So I just made a play, man. And then once I made the play, I was like, man, I'm getting this to the zone. You know what I mean? That was, like a TV Barber 4-2 running at me. I'm like, man, if I can get past him, I'm going to score. And once I got past him, Big Dion, I'm a big Dion fan, and the rest, I'm a high step this thing.
High step. I say he's like.
I wish I would have kept that football, though, man. I follow football probably worth a lot of money, man.
Oh, yeah, bruh. I'm sure it is. Listen, yeah, but you in the moment, man. You in the moment, and
man, that was a big game, man. Golly, that was a big game. And that
you made
rolled off 9 in a row or something like that.
Not. Yeah, we finished 10-2. We won. Yeah, so we won 10 in a row.
Yeah. I'm talking about when we beat UVA.
Oh yeah, it was 9 in a row. It was 9. That was the 9th win.
9 in a row.
And that solidified our Sugar Bowl berth. Yeah. That was a big win, man. That was special time, man. I tell people, I have a son and 2 daughters, and I work with kids. And I tell people, I say, that game wasn't won at that particular moment. It was won because you and Torian and those guys on the defensive side of the ball had battles with Jermaine Holmes, Corny White, Brian Steele. We had some playmakers at receiver. And I remember you guys, I'm a lineman, and I was young at the time, but I remember you guys going at it. And you always, it's so funny, man, outside of football, when I seen you at parties and we hung out, when I see you around, even around the way or whatever, you were just low key chilling, but on the field, you were a leader and a talker. In practice, because again, I go back to the personalities, because even my first year there, man, all you guys, Antonio Freeman, all y'all were trash talkers and outspoken. But the brotherhood was so real, because what I saw as a young guy coming in is all you guys pushed each other to be great. That was so special, man. And now I want to touch on coaching, Banks, because everybody I mentioned, everybody's blessed. We lost some guys along the way, man. Guys like Big Rich, Poons, Brian Edmonds, and so many other guys, man. Keon Carpenter, who's part of that DB legacy. But at the same time, we have a lot of guys still carrying on the tradition of success with yourself, Devon Morgan's coaching, so many guys, Roniel Whitaker.
Loaded, man.
Yeah, I mean, the coaching tree is crazy. T. Gray's coaching at Florida. I will say this about you.
Gray in South Carolina now.
South Carolina. He was Shane.
Yeah, he's with Shane.
My apologies, T. Gray. Yeah. I'll say this about you, because this is your legacy spotlight, Banks. I remember, before we get into your coaching, I remember you going to the league, and you came back. And I've known you since I was, 16, 15 years old. And then I played with you in college. So I know you outside this legacy spot, the good and the bad. And I remember you came back and you were like with the Vikings. And again, you went from a very talented tech team to arguably one of the best teams in NFL history that did win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
With Randy Moss and those guys. You went in the 4th round to the Vikings, right?
Yep.
And you came back and you were like, hey, man, you coming back, giving us motivation and say, hey, man, y'all got to make good decisions. And I was like, man, who is this Banks, man? Like, you were, and you're doing it even more now in coaching. So, I mean, because I seen you get into it with coaches, because you would call people out. It didn't matter. It wasn't personal. You called anybody out that you felt wasn't living up to your standard. So, was it the Vikings when you got drafted in the NFL that changed?
Some of this, like you said, man, some of that, man, this football stuff is so political, man, and man, I burned some bridges along the way, in which I wish I would have never burnt, man, because once you get crossover and get into this coaching part, man, that stuff comes back and haunt you, because they still see you as this, 20, 21-year-old player, and not as a older man that's been through some things that has matured. So our legacy is this guy did this X, Y, and Z when he was 18, 19. versus this guy has overcome so much and put himself in the position to be a coach.
Yeah.
So I've been, had to deal with a lot of that stuff, man. But like you said, man, all our guys, man, we coaching. Anthony Midgie, man, is doing a great job. T. Gray is doing a great job. I just talked to Eddie Whitley the other day. He's at JMU. He's doing a great job, and so many more. Those defensive back guys, Lauren Johnson. And man, just to see that, it's like, wow, this is just bigger than this us playing at Virginia Tech, and just to see all these guys getting into coaching, man, is a big testament to the program in my eyes, man. Definitely.
Yeah, man, and I'm honored to see it because I'm happy for everybody you mentioned and some of the guys we didn't mention. But just real quick, touch on how it was, man, because one thing is I remember as a free agent, I had a short time in Baltimore and Cornell Brown was there. And I remember I was there at minicamp and I got sent home a few days later after minicamp was over. And I went over to Cornell's locker and I said, yeah, I just met with Ozzie. They're going to release me because, it's a numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
And Cornell, you and him, y'all big bros, man. And Cornell was like, man, he had that raspy voice. He was like, man, it ain't the same, Vic. And I was like, what you mean? He was like, I want you to stay. He said, but you ain't missing nothing. I was like, what? Because I'm like, you in the NFL, man, you playing, you here with Rod Woodson, Saragusa, Ray Lewis.
Yeah,
Cornell was like, man, he said, it ain't the same. It's a business, man. He said, man, go live your life.
Yep.
And I remember he told me that. And I talked to Hank Coleman, Myron Newsom, guys that were my brothers that got released or played a little Todd Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And you were in the Vikings. I mean, how was it there? Was it the same thing? You nodded when I talked about Cornell.
Man, it's crazy, man, because it's a fight, man. First of all, I was surprised I got drafted because I got hurt my senior year. I think I tore my groin or something, man, and I was just to get shot up to play. And I didn't have the best workouts in the world. I think I ran like a 4.6, something like that, and my bench press was like 19. My vert was like, so it wasn't like one of those eye-popping deals where he's like, all right, we're going to drop this guy. I really couldn't cover, what I mean? Like if you look at all my measurables, tight in the hip, blah, 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 no burst, those things, all the things they say. But one thing I did have was a lot of heart, man. So when Minnesota drafted me, I was surprised. And then when I got there, it was like, wow, I didn't play my first year. I did something to my foot. Like I was injured the first year, and then they ended up allocating me overseas. So I went overseas and played. So I played football like year round. I was going from, the season to overseas, from overseas back to training camp. So it was like a year round thing. And all I was trying to do, man, was to say, my whole objective big was like, hey, man, try to make it for 4. Hey, man, I was like just trying to get 4 because once you get to the league, they all tell you, man, this thing ain't for long. Hey, young fella, you be here today and be gone tomorrow. And I seen it where you're like, you work out with a guy in the morning and then come to afternoon practice. That dude ain't there. You're like, yo, what happened to such and such? Oh, man, they released him. So you learn real fast. It's a business. And Coach Green, man, he just a stand-up guy because every time they release me, he would bring me in and say, hey, blah, 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 thank you for the contributions you're making. And one thing that saved me is that I was a big contributor on special teams. And going from being a starter in college and now in the league, you trying to make your money by running down on, kickoff, and you blocking people on kickoff return, and you're trying to beat double teams as the gunner on punt team. And so Vic, it was like, whoo. And it was like, man, I'm just trying to, make it for 4, because that's all they take. Hey, you make it for 4, young fella. You get annuities, you get pensions. Like, oh, man. And so every time I got cut, I think I got released 3 times. And the first time when I got released, I ended up going to Canada and playing. And then I came home, I was like a security guard for like 3 weeks. And then my agent called me and said, hey, Minnesota going to bring you back. And that's the year they went 15-1. And one thing about me, man, I knew my role. I knew I had to know all the positions without getting the reps. And I knew I had to and I had to contribute on special teams. I knew that, for sure. And then when I got my opportunity to get in to play, I had to make the most of it. You know what I'm saying? I ended up getting my first start with the Vikings on an ESPN game. We played Kansas City. And that's when we lost, I think, in overtime, I believe, in that game, man. But it was a crazy experience, man. And I go to the Raiders, like it was like back and forth. I went to the Raiders for half a year in '99. I came back, and then my last year I go to the Raiders. The year they went to the Super Bowl in 2001, I went to the Raiders. Ended up getting released like right before training camp, and then at that point I was like, I'm over it, man. I'm over it. And then next thing you know, they say you got 4 years. I played 3 years up in CFL, played overseas, and I was like, okay, what's next? I wish I knew what I knew now. I would have started this coaching thing a lot earlier. That's for sure.
Yeah, you once you and T-Ray were in Minnesota together, right?
Yeah, man. We're so connected at the hip, Vic, because I wouldn't have got the opportunity, even though I was drafted with the Vikings. I would have never got the opportunity to come back to the Vikings if Tigre didn't blow his knee out. A lot of people don't know this stuff, man.
Wow.
And that's how I ended up getting back to the Vikings, because when he blew his knee out, he was a safety, and I had already been there, so I knew the system. So, and that's how I was with Tigre. Me and Tigre's got him when he first had his daughter, Torin, and he was married to his first wife. But that's how small this world is, man. And when it comes to things, that's how I got the opportunity, and then Tigre, he ended up retiring, and he got into coaching right out of it. We ended up going to Maine, and then I played until I was like, you know what, I'm tired of it now. Let's get into coaching. But because I had burnt so many bridges along the way, I wasn't afforded the same leisure as Torian was. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't. It was like, yeah, you gotta find it out on your own how to make it. You know what I mean?
Man.
How to get that boost. I think Bud and them had spoke up for Tigre to get the job at Maine, and hey, it is what it is, man. I'm here. I'm still grinding, man. And like I said, that's the only way I know, Rick. They always count you out, and then they pop up like, "Oh, what you doing here?" I'm like, yeah, I'm still here.
Mm-hmm. Well, you always been resilient.
And I like this, man. What God has for you, man, no one can take it away from you, and that's how I approach it, man. I'm like, hey, you thought I was gonna, end up this way, and God saw something better for me, and I just, you evolve over time, and you give those kids those talks when you're talking to them from a coach perspective. It's, hey, man, I didn't read this in a book. You know what I mean? Which is crazy because, you could play, this is mind blowing. You could play like 12 years in the league, right? Gain all that playing experience. And then you get in the coach and they say, oh, you got to go be a GA, or you got to go be,
I know.
You're like, what?
I know.
Like, they're like, yeah, you got to learn how to be a coach. I'm like, man, I just spent, half of my life in this sport. Like I played this game since 8 years old. So what you telling me? I'm not experienced to coach somebody. That's one fallacy that I don't like about it. And then they come up with all these different rules. If you 7 years past playing graduation, you can't go be a GA. Like they got so much stuff, man, to try to roadblock guys from getting into this coaching business. Man.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because I've been learning the last 5 or 6 years talking to you, hearing this, Cornell, Todd Washington. It's crazy the hoops you got to jump through. And I have a theory. I think it's because of the money involved. Because, at the end of the day, man, like, if you get into a position where you're making money as a player, then you turn around, you can coach it because they make, especially the higher you go, they make a lot of money.
Man, it's like changing money, Vic. It's generational. Yeah. Trust me.
Generational. Yeah. And more guys are getting hip and trying to be coaches and general managers. And there's a lot of roadblocks you got to go through. But no matter what field you in, it's still who you know and who pushes you, who gives you that plug. That's just the way the world works, man. But as your brother, even if I wasn't your brother, but as your brother, I see your grind, and I'm happy for you. I respect, and to some degree, given where you come from in the 7-5, given what you've been through as a player, given what you saw, you probably going to be able to relate more to players than some of the guys that had a straight narrow path. I mean, because you're coaching now. So everybody now, where you coaching at? Everybody watching this.
Yeah, I'm coaching at Garden City Community College, which is in Kansas. It's a JUCO. It's one of the top junior colleges in the Jayhawk Conference here in Kansas, man. And, we deal with a lot of kids who may have struggled in the classroom or, got in some trouble here and there. So we get all those kids. So it's like the second opportunity that these kids having to try to get back to a D1 program. And so you try to share to them, the reason why they're here. The reason why they get into the opportunity, because if they couldn't play, they wouldn't get the opportunity. Let's be real about it. If you can't play, they're not going to bring you in. And this business, man, is all about what you can do for me type thing. And then
No
you build
doubt.
off of it later. So I just give those experiences, man, about, what it is to play at a D1 program like Virginia Tech, and what it's like to be in the NFL and be in the NFL locker room. And I also tell them I don't miss the game, Vic, which is crazy to me. I don't miss playing on Sundays and Saturdays. The stuff that you miss, man, is just the camaraderie. Being in the locker room, joking, shooting the jive with the players. That kind of stuff is what I miss the most, man. And not necessarily the game. Yeah, you miss the money, obviously. But it's more like the friendships that you build and you garner when you're in those settings. That's what I miss the most.
I do too. I still reflect on those days when I'm doing all my different radio, and I'm like, I got brothers for life, man. And you talk about relationships and camaraderie, man. Talk a little bit about, Banks. I joke about how where we are in our life, man. We are in our 40s, man, and life was a journey. And sometimes I pinch myself, say I'm a father and a husband, but you're a father and a husband. And you and I follow each other on social media, man. Like I said, you big bro. And I see the love you have for your wife, and also for, you were posting the other day about your daughter, man. Like, your mom for you was a writer. Your mom, I seen her come to them games from Newport News. I saw her in the parking lot and waiting for you, and she had your jersey on. She held it down for you, and now I see you doing the same for your wife and your family, and even for your players. Just talk about what your family, means to you right now. I know you're a private person, so I know you're a private person, but just share a little bit about, what they mean to you, man.
It's weird, Vic, man, because every day is a new experience. Not coming from that traditional, family where you got the mom, dad married, all that kind of stuff. My mom did the best she can do with me and my brother, my sister. So I'm the oldest of the three, of the two, should I say the three or whatever you want to put it. And so I kind of like had to learn the man part of it from just like looking at my friends who had dads around constantly all the time to try to figure out how to be a man and mature man. So, they always say men mature later than women do. So I would like to say how much, it's been a process, man, because, I remember I went back to Virginia Tech one time, and this was not when I was coaching, and Coach Gentry was there. And we was, I was in the weight room and we was talking, and he, on the sidebar, and he said, hey, man, he said, you was one of the hardest, toughest guys I ever had to coach. And I never knew what was going on. Like, it was one of those, he couldn't get in,
Yeah.
And I was like, Coach, man, to be honest with you, man, I was a young kid from Newport News, kind of like closed, keep me like, didn't trust nobody. So I always had a chip on my shoulder. It was none against you, because you made me, it's speaking in the tense who I am today, wanted to be a coach, wanted to help out. I said, so you played a bigger part in my life than you really realized, just from the stuff that you thought I was being so rebellious against, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff, man. So when I apply that, my first marriage didn't work out, but I got a beautiful daughter from it. And then I was like, man, so it's like trial and tribulation. Then I just got recently married again. So I just finished my second anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, man, be 4 years together in September. And, my wife is my rock, man. She supports me. She's always there. It's never easy, as being married, man. You're going to have your ups and downs.
No doubt.
For the most part, man, you got to know that your partner's there, for you. She's going to take care of you when you're sick. And she's going to tell you when you're wrong, even if you don't want to hear it, man.
No doubt.
And when I was posting the pictures about my daughter, just because her mom is from a different country and I'm here in the U.S., I hadn't seen her in 7 years. So
wow.
COVID coming and all that kind of like pushed it back another year. So when I finally got a chance to see her in 7 years, man, I had so many emotions running through me when I seen, when I left her, she was like 7 years old, and I come back, she's a teenager. So you can imagine how it is when you got a girl.
Yeah, yeah,
You're a
yeah,
dad.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and just me just seeing that, I was like, whoa, it's just a whole different ball game because in 3 more years, because she's turning 15 soon. In 4 more years, she's 18.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that just you say to yourself, man, I just want my daughter to know I'm always gonna be here for her no matter what. No matter what she chooses to do in life, I'm here. Like she's doing this equestrian thing. She's into horses and all that. So I'm like, it was great to bear the shirt out 2 weeks with her there, doing that stuff, man. I try to make a point to talk to her like every day, because she's dealing with, at that age, trying to figure out, because she's a mixed race kid. So where you fit in America, in this world, and she growing up there where it's mostly Caucasian people and not really seeing someone that looks like her dad. So a lot of that anxiety stuff, so it's been a challenge, man, but, I'm getting through it the best I can, and, just and learning every day as I go, man, about how to be a better father, a better husband, and all those things, man. So I'm blessed, Vic, to tell you the truth, man.
No
I truly,
doubt.
man, definitely.
Well, no, man, you are blessed, and you're blessing a lot of young men now following your lead. And by the way, sidebar, you mentioned Gent pulling you to the side and talking to you. I remember when, it's funny, I meant to bring this up earlier, but it popped in my mind. And you play college ball, you have the chance to go home for the summer. So you can go home, but you better come back in shape. And you always, you went and did your thing, but you came back in shape because you got to do the conditioning test. They have them then, they have them now. And Gentry, you both are alpha males. You and Gentry both are alpha males. And I remember everybody came back. We had the max test. You had your power clean, push press, bench, and squat, and your conditioning test. And you came in there with that gray hoodie they used to give us with our number right here. And you came in, put the chalk on your hand, and you pushed it up, broke a record and PR. And you were like, yeah, you write that down. You were saying all this stuff. And Gent, who's been on my show as well, shout out to Coach Gentry, he was like, get out my weight room. Get up. Oh. He's like, get out now. And you were like, whatever though. You see, I broke the record. I was like, bruh. And I was like, yo, this dude, but there was 2 things going on I couldn't believe. Number one, real talk, I couldn't believe you came back and broke a record because you didn't work out with us that summer.
No, I didn't.
You didn't work out. So I'm like, oh, he about to come in here and embarrass himself.
No,
and then you and Gent going at it. But then, in your defense, you have matured like we all have, because nobody is who they are back then.
Yeah, man. Trust me, Vic. So many days I was like, man, I wish I would have did that differently, or I wish I would have did that differently. But hey, your steps is already written, man. So you just try to, lead them as best you can and learn from them. And like I told him that day, man, I really appreciated him, because a lot of what I do is because of what he gave to me, as a player, and just that toughness, that mindset to be tough. And but it's football has changed so much now, Vic, man. I don't like I said, man, I don't even know half the times, man. I just sit there with my arms crossed and just look. It's like, it's just crazy. You know what I'm saying? That's all.
Well, let me ask you this. I got 2 more. I got just 2 more questions for you, man. I'm going to ask you about this. This is one of my last questions I have for you. I asked a lot of coaches that come on my legacy spot like this, because neither you or I, we're not that old man, get off my lawn guy. I'm not that guy. No, you're not. But to be fair, it is a different time. I coach too. I coach my son and his teammates. They're 15. And this generation is different. They said the same thing about us, but it's different in the fact that they have more distractions. They have a sense of entitlement. There's this expectation where they're not as patient. You looking back, as good as you were in Torian, there were guys behind you like Midget and Lauren and Keon that waited their turn. Yep. Cornell Brown came in. He was one of the best signees Tech ever had, and played and started as a freshman, but didn't come in expecting to be the guy. Yep. You're coaching guys. You coached at one of the best programs in the world in IMG. You talking about everybody got mixtapes and highlights and followers. You know what I'm saying? So, like, with that being said, is coaching these kids now, I know you love what you do, but is it so much different than we played, or is it still kids are going to be kids?
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, just kids gonna be kids, like you said. They just got more distractions than what we had, and they just got to find different ways to reach them than what, say, your coach might have done it with you. With the hardness is not in it anymore. As far as what you can say, what you can't say, you have to kind of like meet the kid where he's at, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and get him to know what he's doing right or wrong, and then try to hopefully that he figures it out along the way, because there's only so much you can say to the kid, or he's going to transfer and go here, or man, it's crazy. So you just gotta tell him, hey man, what you're doing now is gonna set you up for later in life. So you can have some obstacles, man. The storm is gonna come, but it's not gonna last long. You just gotta continue to fight, get up every day, try to get 1% better, man. It's just continue to go about your day, man. And that's kind of hard because like you said, it's just like sticking in the microwave. They want it instantly, and I'm like, man, it don't come that way. You got to put in the work. And so
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I try to do, man, first and foremost, man, is tell the guys like my unit, the secondary, is take pride in what you do. And that means if practice start at 6:15, I'm gonna be out here at 5:50. Which is what you mean? Because I take pride in my position that I'm already gonna be working while they still in the locker room getting ready. I'm already on the field working on my craft. Because when
Mm-hmm.
you have that kind of workman type, attitude, man, it's gonna carry you a long way. Not only in football, because at the end of the day, I tell these kids, I was like, man, it's great. We chasing the dream, but you'd be surprised that once you get the dream, it don't last long, fellas. So you gotta start thinking that, setting yourself up for later after you achieve your dream, which is hopefully to play in the NFL or to get a degree or whatever the case may be. But if there are other things in life that you can be,
Mm-hmm.
part of so much rewarding than playing in the NFL or doing a lot of things you guys think is what's gonna make you, which is the grills and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, what's gonna happen when you 70? You wearing the grills when you 70?
Oh, probably
Hey,
not.
I just talked to him. I just talked to him like that, man. Some you win, some you lose. And I'm a big fan of like Ike Johnson, man. So I try to do my best, a lot to show these guys just that kind of inspiration of enjoy the process and what is your why you do what you do. Because we all got different reasons why we do what we do. So you want them to constantly understand why they do what they do, and hopefully they're able to put themselves in a better situation, overall. You know what I mean?
No doubt, man. That's actually great. That ties into my last question, Banks. As I said before, man, you influenced me indirectly when you were at Warwick. You chose tech. You and Sean Hamlet finessed the system, but I'm glad you did it. Um, because but before social media, you had to just, read magazines and watch TV. And I saw you make that play. And I remembered you from the two battles I had with you at Warwick. And I saw you do plays at Tech, and then I joined you there. You influenced me, and I wanted to be part of that. You and Law Lou, and then you get to Tech, and as I mentioned, you make some of the best plays in program history, and you going on and do the great things you do. Now with the perspective you have, the life lessons you experience, and you're not done, neither am I, but you are on your path, and you find yourself, and now you're inspiring and mentoring others. What final points do you want to share on your legacy spotlight to tell people that are going to see this, no matter if they're players or just, aspiring to, do what they do? What advice do you have, man, given that you come from the mud, that you came from nothing, you rose above that? What do you want to tell somebody right now who's trying to achieve their dream, who's struggling, or who is just, trying to get through things? They want to be where you're at or beyond. What do you want to tell them?
Man, like I just like to, I just tell kids, man, just be consistent, as much as possible. Um, every day is not gonna be a good day. I always try to do like a mental health check type thing, 1 to 10, where I'm at, just so you know where you going, how your day is gonna play out. Time management. Try to understand how to plan out your days, whether you being a student, how I'm gonna go about my day as a classroom, and then on the field, man. So and the storm's going to come, man. It's just a matter of how I weather the storm, because it's going to come. You're going to have deaths in your family. Something's going to happen in your life where you might think it's traumatic, but at the end of the day, man, the storm going to pass, and you got to get back, pick yourself back up, man, and go again. So That's what I'm learning, man, because trust me, I've been in a situation where I'm like, wow, man, I'm almost out. And then right before I get to that point, man, God blesses me with another opportunity to go and continue to motivate and try to give back, man. So I like to say, man, thanks to all those coaches who saw something in me, as a young kid to say, hey, this kid deserves better. Hopefully the light will come on one day, and then he can kind of like carry the message that we giving to him and put it in someone else, man. So I just said, man, just try to stay consistent, man, and try not to burn no bridges. I know it might happen, but if you do burn in the bridges, man, just try to go back and repair those bridges the best you possibly can. And at the end of the day, it's up to that person to forgive you. And if they don't, then that's something that you don't have to carry that load of, feeling like I should have did this and should have did that because you forgave. You know what I mean?
No doubt, man. Wise words from my guy. One of the best ever.
Man, you the best, man. Awesome, Big Vic.
Hey,
man, I never thought it, man. I'll be on your podcast, man. You keep doing your thing, man. You blessed beyond the field, man. This is some stuff I wish I could have tapped into, man, but I don't have the gift for gab like that, man.
Yeah. I know. I run my mouth. People pay me to run my mouth, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate you jumping on. I appreciate you more than you know, man.
Anytime, man. Let me know. Tell the wife I said hello. Tell all my VT people I said, how's it going, man? Hopefully we can get this thing on the right track sooner or later, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, with that being said, I'm gonna end it with this, man. To all the Banks family and friends and supporters, man, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Banks, again for being who you are, man. My big bro, man. I'm glad we went from battling in high school to brothers on the field at Tech. Salute to one of the best to ever do it, man. And I just want to say thank you for joining the Vicktory Life movement. And to all those, please subscribe to the Vicktory Life YouTube channel so you can see great interviews like Antonio Banks Legacy Spotlight, and so many other special people, men and women. And like I say every episode, man, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you have a positive impact and you leave a great legacy. Thank you, Banks, for jumping on, man.
Appreciate it, man. You have a blessed one, my brother.
You too. Thank you.
All right.